Please note that before this creepypasta starts, this is an original by me. You will not find this anywhere else. Enjoy. For most people, the 7th generation of consoles was a blast. But for me, it's a painful memory that cannot be erased. This all started in the summer of 2011. E3 had just passed, and it was a talk of the school. I'd hear students walking down the corridor debating about which games would be the best. Not me though. I was a quiet kid. I did not own a 7th gen gaming console, to the shock of all my peers. But I was happy with my PS2 and Dell laptop. I'd play GTA San Andreas and Portal and have a blast. But then I discovered Crisis 2. I watched hours of gameplay on YouTube, and this made me want to buy an Xbox 360 really bad. But I had no money due to this. I was made fun of in school. My breaking point was when a kid named Daniel chanted across the room saying that Thomas has no money for a 360 in a chanting tone. After this, I ran home in tears. My mother, being the kind woman she is, offered to take me with her to a car boot sale. Once we arrived, she told me to look around and to meet her back at the car an hour. I was delighted, as I love car boot sales. You can always find a good bargain. It wasn't too eventful. I walked 15 minutes, and all the people I really saw were elderly couples trying to make some money on small items they had sitting around. But then I stumbled across an old man who had the Holy Grail. It was an Xbox 360. I asked him the price and he said, "Well, sonny, I've been trying to sell this 360 game box for a couple of days now with no success. The original asking price was $80, but for you, sir, I'll give it to you for free." "What?" I said. This was unbelievable. This old man was selling me a current gen console for practically nothing. He was offering it for me for free, not wanting to take advantage of an elderly man with no electronic knowledge. I asked him, "Are you sure you could make a good sum of money from this?" The man smiled. He leaned into me and said in a serious tone, "Just promise me this. You will never sell this device or damage it in any way. Just keep it. You understand?" The man then leaned back, waiting for a response. Yes, sir, but why do you want me to have this?" I stuttered. He then let out a big sigh and told me it was my grandson's. He loved playing it, but after an incident, it was left to me as his favorite relative. I loved him so much, but now I want to pass it on to you. I looked back at him with a sad look on my face. I then tried to say sorry to the man and comfort him. But as I began speaking, he jumped in his car, and just like that, he was gone, and I was left with his 360. After the old man left, I walked back to my car to meet with my mother. She seemed shocked. "Oh, Thomas, you got something. What is it?" she asked me. I told her that it was an Xbox 360. I told her the story about the old man giving it to me. once I was giving it to me. Once I was done with my story, she told me to put the Xbox in the back seat, and we drove home. Once we got home, I ran straight upstairs. I have never ran so fast in my life. I hurried to hook up the Xbox 360. I plugged the cords into the TV and wall, grabbed the controller, and I was ready to play. That was the end of part 1, but don't worry, we have more parts coming along very soon, so make sure to stay tuned for those. Anyway, I will see you in the next reading. Bye! I had just switched on my new Xbox 360, holding the controller, waiting eagerly to play an Xbox console for the first time. The first thing I noticed was a strange red Xbox 360 boot logo, but I just shrugged it off, thinking that the previous owner, who was the grandson of the old man at the car boot sale, had just modded the console to change the boot screen. When it booted to the menu, there were 3 users on the console, but I noticed something odd. The background was moving. It was a mysterious black cave, with what looked like lava pouring out. Other users' avatars looked strange. They all looked sad, except for the first user, who was called the Master. He wore a huge white grin. This put me off first, especially how his gamer score was 666. But still, I tried to shrug it off. As a heavily modded console, the 2 other users were called David and Newcomer. David looked sad. His clothes didn't even resemble clothes. They looked more like rags. On his face, he had what looked like burn marks. His back was slouched, and he looked very sad. He had a game score of 200. The final character, Newcomer, looked a bit more normal. He wore an Xbox shirt, cargo shorts, and a small frown on his face. He had a gamer score of 0. After 2 minutes of staring at the screen, I decided to choose the user Newcomer. After waiting a couple of seconds, the dashboard finally booted up. And for a couple of seconds, I saw what looks like red words on a strange background. The dashboard looked very strange. It had a 1 shade grey background with 4 Xbox windows, all with different words such as disk, game store, messages, and the window with the name prisoners. This really started to creep me out, as I knew well that you couldn't mod an Xbox console to remove functions. This is when my curiosity got the best of me, as I clicked on prisoners, which is a decision I still regret to this day. As soon as I clicked it, the screen went to a static, then cut to what looked like an abandoned prison. The camera then cut to a cell where what looked like an avatar crying in the corner, and then realised it was the same avatar from the dashboard. It was David. He then turned around to reveal huge whip marks on his face. He then looked at me. "What are you doing? You've never seen a whip mark on an avatar's face before?" he said. Said David. I was so shocked. I muttered out the words, why are you talking? He then looked back at me and said, "I am a living creature too, you know." I was shocked. How could David talk? And most of all, how could he hear me trying to make friendly contact? I said, "Hello, David. Are you okay?" David looked a bit more relaxed and said, "Yeah, I'm fine. Apart from this mark on my face that hurts a little bit. But apart from that, I'm feeling just fine." I was relieved knowing that he was okay. I still felt a little uneasy. However, I asked him, "How can you hear me?" David let out a big sigh and said, "Well, this is hard to say, but please don't be alarmed. My soul uses the television to communicate with you directly with the world, directly with your world outside the Xbox," David said reluctantly. I looked down in sadness, feeling sorry for David. I then looked up, and David asked me, "You know my name, but I don't know yours. What's your name, newcomer?" I then looked back at David and said, "My name is Thomas, but my friends and family call me Tom." David looked up and said, "Well, Thomas, or Tom, it's nice to meet you. It's great to talk to someone who isn't a resident for a change." I looked at David with a confused expression on my face and asked, "A resident? What's that? Why is this Xbox so messed up anyway?" David looked at the ground and then stared at me and said, "Fine, you want the truth? Then here it is. This Xbox was originally owned by me while I was still alive in human form. I was murdered, and so my murderer's soul ended up in the Xbox. My murderer took the form of the devil and is now addressed as the master. He corrupted the Xbox files until it was made into something he was happy with. He took the form of an avatar. I took the form of my avatar. After all this, I was alone, imprisoned by the master. He now rules the Xbox with an iron fist. We now call the console Xbox 366, as we now call it. Residents are the avatars that inhabit the Xbox, as in the ones who have souls or feelings." I looked down in great sadness, thinking about the horrors David must have gone through. "That's horrible. You don't deserve this," I said quietly. David then said, "I know it is. Please help me." The screen then faded away into static once more, and a message appeared on my screen. It was the words, "There's no hope," on a black background. It stayed on screen for about just under 2 seconds before it cut to the 4-window dashboard. Except there was something different. The window, as said prisoners, was chain lock shut. Xbox was starting to freak me out. First, an avatar, David, starts talking to me. Now, this, a feature of the console, chained, locked shut. I had enough of the console at that point, so I unplugged it and placed it up in the attic, promising myself that I would never touch the console ever again. Fast forward 3 years, it was the summer of 2014. I had just finished high school and I was getting ready to go to college. As I had 10 weeks off that summer, I decided to get into my old hobby, which was gaming. I also really wanted to play Grand Theft Auto 5, which released in late 2013. I was originally planning to buy a PS4, however, GTA Grand Theft Auto was not available on that platform. Then I remembered my old Xbox 360, which I stored up in the attic. However, at the time, my memories of the events that occurred back in 2011, I did not recall, so I took it to my room and plugged it into my TV to see if it still worked, and to my surprise, it did. However, the startup this time was distorted, with what sounded like a broken organ playing funeral music, and barely visible text on the screen which said Xbox 3666. As soon as this came on screen, the strange smell of sulphur could be smelled from the Xbox system. Then the screen went black. Suddenly, a deep voice said, "It's you, Tom. I knew someday you'd return." I was caught off guard by this. Then, suddenly, all the memories of David and the messed up menu and the system came flooding back. All of a sudden, a graphic picture of what appeared to be a boy no older than 11 or 12 with a massive stab wound covered in blood and his intestines placed next to him, and the date of June 12th, 2009, and the name David Sanders with a police case file code of 9473. This was just too much for me, and I vomited everywhere. Then, in a fit of rage, I took the Xbox. As I was enraged with what I had to witness, I took it outside and I smashed it on the patio. A few moments went by, and everything was normal, until I started thinking about the image and all the codes. So, I went onto the internet and searched the name David Sanders, along with the police case file code, and I found an article. It was about a murder which happened on the date of June 12th, 2009, and a boy was murdered during a home robbery. The objects stolen from the house were a few laptops, some jewellery, and an Xbox 360 console. The criminal was found later that week and was dead, and sat next to him was the Xbox 360. The police gave the Xbox to David Sanders' closest relative, his grandfather, who looked just like the man who gave me the Xbox years ago. There was also a website set up in memory of David. On there was some home videos. In one, we heard David Sanders talk, and he sounded just like the David avatar inside the Xbox. Then it hit me. The Xbox I was given and had destroyed was the same Xbox owned by David Sanders, who was murdered on June 12th, 2009.